Hey, it's Rob. Welcome to Axel's Garage. It is a bright, sunny. We're on part 2 of this XJ front end nightmare. And we want to make this steering knuckle and hub assembly look like that one. I can't even see the camera. I don't know if I'm on camera, I'm off camera. But where we're at is trying to separate the hub from the knuckle and get it all wire wheeled down and painted up, and so that we can start putting everything back together. What we did off camera was we went out to the XJ and we degreased the entire front end. Then we went with a wire wheel and a different couple of shapes of wire wheels, and got all the loose heavy rust off. We treated it with some rust treatment, and then we gave it a quick nice paint job, so everything is clean and ready to go underneath. We're still waiting on a lot of parts to come in. This whole supply chain thing is really makes everything difficult, and I'm going to show you what the deal is with these bolts and why they're so hard to get in and out, and I'll bring the camera in and we'll show you that. Alright, so besides all this scaling hard rust on this knuckle, it would be really nice if they made new knuckles. It would make things much easier. But this is what you're dealing with. You see these 3 bolts. These are the 3 bolts that hold the hub assembly in, and there's just nothing left of them. They're supposed to be like this, and you could see the rust is just deteriorated. Now this is an 2000, year model 2000, so it's 22 years, and it's been in New York its entire 22 years, and this is what all the salt and everything that they put down on the roads, this is what it does to your parts. So we need to clean this up or get these bolts out, number one, so when you put a 12-point socket on it, it just rips these to shreds, because there's barely anything left of them. I can't imagine, in New York not doing a job like this and not having to use new bolts. It probably doesn't exist. I wound up ordering a box of 10. Rock Auto had a box of 10, but you can buy these individually in Dorman. Best thing to do when you're putting them in is a lot of anti-seize, and then paint the bolt head and then cover it with some synthetic grease that won't easily wash away, just to preserve as much of the bolt head as possible for when you gotta take it back out again. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to make it 2 pieces, and then we're gonna try to finish it down so that in the end it doesn't look great, but it's clean. There's no rust that's going to be flaking off of it, and we got it as clean down as possible, painted with some rust encapsulator from Eastwood, and then we top coated it with some chassis black just to hopefully let it survive the rest of its life in this vehicle. So we're going to try to make that one look the same way. So one of the biggest problems with getting those 12-point bolts out that are completely corroded is getting a socket to stay on them. So I was actually in the week time frame that we took everything apart, and you remember in the first video where we had to cut the ball joints out to get those knuckles off with the hubs still attached to them. You remember I broke a couple sockets trying to get them off, and they just weren't budging. So there was two forces going on. The bolt being seized in the hub, right, rusted and seized in there, and the bolt head itself being rusted. So the bolt head itself being rusted, the problem is you can't get a socket on it, or a socket to grab good enough without slipping. And if you do get a socket to grab good enough without slipping, a lot of times the socket cracks on you. So Project Farm did a comparison on nut extractors or bolt extractors, not stud extractors, talking about the bolt or nut, a hex head nut. And one of the kits was using sockets, something like this, and he tested a whole bunch of different ones, and this one is Amartizan, whatever it is here. That's the brand. This is the set, and for like $25–30 you got a nice set of them, metric and standard. And we did use one that broke on us, and the reason why I picked this, now this wasn't his top pick on bolt extractors. the top pick that he had was one that didn't have a hex on it also. And these are impact rated, but I like that they had the hex because it gave you an option. Well, I tried to use the 13 millimeter to get one of those bolts out using a big wrench on the wrench end, and we wound up just tearing the socket in half. And then I went down to the half inch, the 12 millimeter, and really hammering them on using an impact to get them off, and that seemed to work pretty good, and they held up pretty good. I just like that even though they're a little bit bigger with that hex on them, it just gives you another option. But we did break one because of that hex. I'm sure if I would have used an impact on this, it either would have started slipping or it wouldn't have done anything, and this socket probably wouldn't have broken. Probably broke from that not so much leverage, but the side forces that I was putting on it by using a wrench. So we're going to get the hub and knuckle assembly in here on the vise. I have a little 4-inch vise, and I'll move the camera and I'll show you how we're going to try to get these things off. Now, if yesterday was any example of what today's going to bring, I needed my big giant Milwaukee 1/2-inch impact, a hammer, a punch, some vice grips, and we should be able to get this thing apart, hopefully. You do recall in the first video, this assembly would sit like this in the car, so I was trying on one of these to get it off, and that's where we realized we were going to have a big issue. And I wound up cutting the bolt head off and then getting on it with a grinder and getting rid of the bolt itself, and I ground it all the way down where it just completely removed this whole thing, and you could see the outline of the shaft of the bolt and the casting of the knuckle, and that's good because you can then punch it through that way. If you can get in here for all of them, you could do that on the car that way. You wouldn't have to cut the ball joints off. But this one is the one that's going to give a problem because the ball joint stud comes down here and you really don't have enough room to get a tool in here. If you have a Dremel with some kind of real sharp carbide bit on it where you can grind this off, you know, God bless you, but that's a lot of grinding on a little tool. You know, cutting it off with a whizzer and then grinding it down was easier, but you just couldn't do it here. So this is your main problem, is the one that's interfering with the ball joint. You got the ball joint shaft that comes down and the nut on it, so there's not a whole lot of room here. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this sort of sitting in the vise as best as we can. There's no real easy way to clamp it in, but I kind of just get it so that I could hammer. So just get it set up. You don't want to, I don't really want to put a lot of pressure on the knuckle itself because it's a cast piece and I don't want to break it, so I don't want to lock that in the vise. So I kind of got it in the vise this way. So this seems like the best angle to go at to give you guys a view of what's going on. So I'm going to take and this is the 1/2 inch. I started with the 13 millimeter on the other one when we did it, and that's because we know these are 13 millimeter. The problem is it cracked, so now I got to start with the 1/2 inch, and you got to really hammer it on as good and straight as you can get it. Doesn't look like it's going to go any more than that. Okay, now that it's hammered on, I'm learning from experience to heat the other side up where the threads are. So I'll come around on this side, and where the bolt goes through the hub is where the threads are. Use whatever torch you have available to you. I have a MAP gas torch, and I'm going to give it a couple of minutes with the MAP gas. Try to heat it up to give myself a fighting chance when I try to take this thing off. I gave it about 2-3 minutes with the MAP gas, and if you have a hotter torch, use it. I don't, so that's as best as I could do, and now I'm going to try to see if I can get this off. Alright, and it did come off nice. Alright, came out nice and easy, sort of. Now the only drawback now is this socket is really stuck on the bolt, so you got to beat it off. Might be a little warm from the gas. Leave this in, if anything. Give it just like one turn in, holding on to it, and I'll show you why later on. So now we got to go to the second one, and hopefully the second one comes out just as easy. You might be tempted to try it without the heat. Don't. And the reason why I'm saying that is because once you start ripping this socket off of there, now you got to go to a different size socket, and you might not get the best grab like you're getting on the initial one with the initial 1/2 inch or 13 millimeter, what do they call it? Nut remover socket. If you don't have a really high torque impact like this, I don't know what you would do in this situation. Like I said, I tried it with a wrench and it just snapped the socket. See, this one's spinning on me, so this one's not going to be as easy, that's for sure. So, I'm going to try to get this on even better. Oop, that's hot over there. Wow, ooh, that was hot. Whatever I touched was hot. All right, it's spinning, and it's hot. Alright, so that one spun, that one spun. Be careful for the hot spots. Alright, now I gotta get this socket on this one and try to get number 3 out. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat, and then I'm going to hammer a little bit more, and maybe the heat and then the hammering action will help loosen up some of that rust, which might make it a little easy to get out. Alright, so after a couple of minutes of heating, I'm going to give it a couple more shots, make sure it's seated, hopefully knocked it loose a little bit. And now we're going to go in for the kill, and we got it. Nice. Alright, so now once that's off, let me give it a thread or two, try to get my socket off. Alright, we got that socket off. Let me show you what that socket looks like. You know, they get a little cut up. That's what they're designed to do. But for a $25 set of, what is it? It says 13-piece impact bolt and nut remover, high power and impact resistant, best quality. There is no guarantee, but you know what? This little kit is worth its weight in gold. So now we got to get this hub, and you can see how rusted it is in here. We got to get the hub out. So we're in just a thread or two. We're in here just a thread or two. This one can come out a little more, and it doesn't want to turn on its own. So let's see if we can not hammer the socket on, just turn it. It does. So we got that all the way, and we're just going to go and turn it too, and I'll show you why. Now we're going to take this and we're gonna put it up in the vise, and we're gonna give some taps. So now these are threaded into the hub, not into the knuckle. So by hitting it, we should push the hub forward. So a couple over here, a couple over here, a couple over here, and we're gonna work our way around to hopefully separate the hub from the knuckle. And it's starting to move. Might not look like anything on the camera, but it's definitely starting to come out. Oh, there it goes. There it goes, and they're all seated down now. So remember, the bolts are hot or a little warm. I'm just gonna make sure they're all out. And that hub just fell out. So now we got our knuckle. There's our backing plate, which is garbage. These bolts, which, yeah, they're garbage, but what are these? These are sacrificial bolts to bang the hub out if you ever have to do any kind of Jeep that takes these bolts. If your bolts come right out because they're not all rotted when it's on the vehicle, you pull your bolts out. Now you could take these and you could put them in a thread or two, and while it's on the vehicle, bang from the backside to get the hub out, because usually the hub is rusted up in here, and that's why they're hard to get out. And you could use those as sacrificial bolts. So you save these and put these in your Jeep toolbox. And now we're going to take this and we're going to start cleaning it up. So how we clean this up is simple. Little ball peen hammer, and start going around all the places where it's like flaking off. And it takes some time. So I'm just tapping, and any spot where the flaking rust is, it breaks off. You can see right there. And I'm going to go around the whole thing, breaking it off. You could use a little punch, right, to get the big chunks off, where you see a big chunk like that, and you come in with a small chisel or a punch, and you could get all that heavy, loose, flaking stuff off. Yeah, is it some of the structure of this unit? Yeah, it is, but what are you going to do? I'm sure it'll be plenty strong enough. You can see right here, we got a big chunk right there. So if you come in with the punch, see how it all just disintegrates. So it's not, this stuff isn't attached, so taking it off is not going to make it any worse. Definitely not going to make it better. But what my logic by getting all this loose stuff off is, I could get a coat of protective paint on it, and hopefully it won't rust any further than it already is. So I've been shipping for the better part of an hour for anything loose. Just like this. And to be honest with you, it almost seems like you could go forever, because each time you turn it, you notice something else. But I was really just trying to get anything loose and flaky off, both in here, around, and out back, just so I could get a good coat of protective paint on it. It's not perfect. You could spend as long as you want on it. However much time you do spend is going to probably add to its longevity. Anything that you chip off is no longer structural anymore, so you're not weakening it any more than it's already weakened. It's definitely missing metal that it would have had when it was new, but I don't know, I just couldn't leave it the way it was. So now what I'm going to do is I will bring it outside on the bench, and I'm just going to take some wire wheels, different ones, round ones, straight ones, and give it a good wire wheeling inside and out as best as I can, so that it has the paint has a fighting chance of sticking on it. encapsulator from eastward. Alright, that was extreme chassis black and satin finish because I had it on the shelf. Alright, so I got both spindles, knuckles, steering knuckles, whatever you want to call them, cleaned up, painted, a lot of corrosion. You know, it's a Jeep, it's the Northeast, it's going to happen. You just need them to last for another 20 years. And I think these will be okay. I don't anticipate having any problem with them. We're going to let these dry, and then we can start assembly. We're going to get those ball joints in first, so that'll come in another video. So we got a bunch of videos on this Jeep. We're trying to break them up into smaller videos, but it'll all be linked in the description. It'll be a list of all the videos we have taking you along the way on this project. Anything that we use, any parts, any, like that socket set, any paints, we'll link it in the description, and we'll keep breaking it up. I think I said this was video 2. This might actually be video 3 or 4. I don't even know where we're at this point. It's just, as stuff comes in, we're trying to get it together. It's just supply chain drama as far as getting stuff in. Even like axle seals are taking forever. So we'll see what happens. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.